Welcome and thanks for tuning into the O Podcast, also known as the Only Women Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Rosemary Cescolini, your host, a former high school English teacher turned entrepreneur in the male-dominated industry of manufacturing. For 30 years, I worked at Royal Door Limited, a family-owned and operated company creating custom wood doors for thousands of people across the entire country. Our products are household names and are featured in blockbuster Hollywood movies, builders and renovation magazines, and HGTV real estate shows. Now, my new initiative, I Run O, an organization dedicated to uplifting and supporting women in all walks of life. In this podcast, we examine the stories of powerful women who have forged their own path in life and broken all the barriers confronting them. Join me as we uncover the challenges they faced and the lessons they've learned along the way. Today, we are humbled and extremely privileged to host an incredible entrepreneur, philanthropist, and trailblazer, Robin Thorne. Robin is the CEO and driving force behind CTI Environmental, an engineering and construction management firm with a unique mission to promote environmental sustainability and safety in the industry. But that's not all. Robin has many talents. Her journey is defined by her unwavering commitment to empowering women and girls to pursue non-traditional careers through her nonprofit, DemoChicks. Robin's story is one of resilience, determination, and the pursuit of excellence. From putting herself through college to founding and leading a successful company, she shattered glass ceilings all along the way. Her impact reaches far beyond the boardroom, as she tirelessly advocates for diversity, education, and community betterment. Without further ado, welcome Robin to the podcast.
Well, thank you, man. That sounds really exciting. And Rosemary, I love the name of your podcast and what it represents. So thank you for having me on today.
Well, the pleasure's all ours because you are a very unique individual, hardworking, and you've got so much good information to share with our audience today. So I want to get started by getting to know a little bit about Robin Thorne. Take us back about your background, where you were born, what life was like growing up, and your work history, if you don't mind.
I need to start a new song because I'm from Philadelphia, so people always like to say West Philadelphia, born and raised, from that song. But I wasn't born in West Philadelphia, but Philadelphia, born and raised. I have siblings. I have two sisters and a brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really not the middle child, although one of my sisters says I am, but I am the middle girl. But I have middle child tendencies, or whatever that's worth. I'm born in Philadelphia. I've been in California for 24 years now.
Awesome.
I attended community college before pursuing my chemical engineering degree at Drexel University. So I attended the Community College of Philadelphia, right, and focused on the first 2 years of an engineering curriculum. Mm-hmm. So all the math, science, and physics, and then transferred to Drexel University.
Fantastic. Actually, Philadelphia is a very dear to me. It's special in the fact that there's Will Eyes Hospital on Walnut Street. And the reason why it's near and dear is my family started a private foundation. It's called Brandon's Eye Research Foundation, and it actually raises money for to prevent blindness in children. And one of their head pediatric ophthalmologists, Dr. Alex Levin, he's no longer there. He's moved on to Rochester. We've collaborated with him on hundreds of research projects in the hopes of preserving sight in children. So I visit often. So I'll be in the area in the new year. So I'm looking forward to that. Can you describe a little bit your work history?
Well, I started working I started working before high school. My uncle owned a variety store.
Okay.
Sold candy and groceries in the neighborhood. And that's where I learned to count money and work a cash register. And the cash registers at that time didn't tell you how much change to give back. You actually had to round up and figure it out yourself. And the training there was very, very important. I didn't realize how important it was because I learned how to say when someone approaches the counter, "May I help you?" Mm-hmm. And after they've purchased, the appreciation, "Thank you." so I just learned some manners in there. And my grandmother taught me how to count money and have it all facing the same way, and
Right.
and all of that, and how to bundle. And so that was very, very, very interesting. It was a family business, owned by my uncle, like 50 years. So that's pretty amazing. Um, so that was really exciting for me. And I always liked math. So I've always loved math, and I always loved science. And so my first job was in my uncle's store. And then when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I took typing. I was in a typing class. And so the federal government had a program for high school seniors where we would work part-time, like 20
Right.
hours a week. And then after we graduated, they hired us to work in a typing pool. So my very first official job was as a clerk typist. So I learned all the rules. So I'm very regimented, right? I like to learn. I like to know that there's two spaces after a period and one after a comma, although they changed all of that,
They sure did. I know.
And, you with the salutation of a letter, and then you return twice. So there are all these rules associated
Exactly.
with working for the VA in a typing pool. And I enjoy rules. I like to follow them.
And
And
that's
so that was
funny.
actually my first job, clerk typist. So I didn't obtain my engineering degree until after working for 8 years. So I was 8 years removed from high school when I went back for engineering. So I started in
Mm-hmm.
the clerical space, working for federal government, then city government, then the post office before I went back to school.
So, what made you decide to take engineering and pursue that career?
Well, I had my son. I had my son, single parent, and
Mm-hmm.
when I had my son, there's nothing wrong with being in the clerical space, but I always like math and science, and it's interesting because looking back in my high school yearbook, I said I wanted to be a chemical engineer. So at some point in my life, I thought about the direction I was going in. I really did not like the type of work I was doing, because when
Right.
I was working at the post office, it's just repetitive, on a machine all day, not really, no creativity. It's just like piecework, right? And so
Yes,
I
that's
know I
right.
didn't enjoy that. So I thought about it, and I said, well, what is it that I want to, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And thought about the engineering and going back to school. But then I looked at what it took, like the curriculum. I looked at a curriculum, and it was all this math, all this science. And I thought, that's a lot of work. And then I thought that I would rather try it and fail than, 20 years later, think like regretting it. And so that's when I decided to pursue my dream of becoming a chemical engineer.
And you brought up some really important points. First of all, what I'm finding is two things that's going on in society right now. We have youth that are going through school, and they are giving just a couple of options as to a career. And they'll pick an option that is presented to them, and they might pursue it for, like you said, 8 years, maybe somebody else 10 years. And all of a sudden they think about it and they say, you know what? I'm not really passionate about this. Like you mentioned about things being repetitive and you're not able to be creative. What actually attracted me to manufacturing was every single day was different for me. Like I really didn't know what the day would hold for me, and it was kind of exciting. It was mysterious, and whereas, like you said, I don't think I could have found myself working like you, maybe in a clerical position where you'd be typing constantly or taking down dictation. So that's one important point. And the other thing is, it's never too late in your life to make that change. So for our audience that might be in a career at the moment and they're like, well, I'm not really enjoying it, I'm not liking it, it's still not too late to change it and pursue another career. Those are very valid points.
Yeah, and I have one of my friends I graduated with from Drexel,
Mm-hmm.
who's also a chemical engineer. And so she had her engineering degree, and then she went back for her MBA
Right.
and worked for many years, maybe 10 years, and then decided to go back to school for cosmetology. And now she has a very successful hair, I want to say a salon. She calls it a boutique, and specializes in hair replacement
Nice.
and weaves and all the other different hairstyles. But that's really exciting. And I just think about people who may have said to her, "You're an engineer. What are you going to cosmetology school for?" Now she's doing something she's passionate about and she loves, and she loved engineering as well. So I really admire her for just having the courage to do something different.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that additional story. I would, very motivational for our audience. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your company, CTI. Now, CTI Environmental places a strong emphasis on compliance and sustainability. So, can you tell us more about your company, how your company incorporates these values into projects that you oversee?
When I started, so my career, I started in manufacturing as a
Mm-hmm.
process engineer, manufacturing polyurethane foam,
Okay.
and then quickly transitioned into regulatory compliance. So environmental health and safety compliance. And I'm glad I had that experience in California because it's so highly regulated. I learned, what different agencies expect from a manufacturer. And so that's my background for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started CTI, that's what we focused on, helping our clients to be safe. So, taking care of their employees, people come to work,
Right.
um, they should go home in the same condition, without being injured. I mean, they have a right to a safe work environment. So while companies are focused on making widgets, they may not understand all the regulations and requirements. So at CTI, we help them to understand how to keep their employees safe through implementing safety programs, whether it's respiratory protection, hazard communication, in the construction space, excavation, confined space entry. So
Mm-hmm.
all those types of trainings we provide and written program development. And then we also are on site helping the clients because, like I said, they're focused on their widget making. And
Right.
then on the environmental side, it's important that companies are not polluting the environment, right? If they
Exactly.
have chemicals, they need to remain on site and not make their way to waterways. So there's regulations that are in place because companies in the past have polluted the environment, whether it's like a chemical spill or smoke or
Right.
whatever the case might be.
Mm-hmm.
So we are experts in knowing the regulatory requirements, and also dealing with hazardous materials. So we provide hazardous material testing, whether it's lead, whether it's asbestos or contaminated soils. So our work helps companies to contain whatever potential pollutants there are and manage them in a way that's compliant with the government, state, or local regulations.
That's incredible just to hear that, and how important your role is, because not only are you looking after the interests of your client who hired you, the people that they employ, but also people like me. I'm part of the ecosystem. I'm far away from California, but I have to respect and thank you for doing your job, because that makes my air, my water, my food, everything safer because of your job. Appreciate that.
And one of the areas that I'm really interested in or here lately has been
Hmm.
waste diversion or waste management, waste minimization. It's required on construction projects, but
Right.
it's very intriguing to me to work with organizations to help them to minimize their waste because there are opportunities in construction projects to recycle materials. So most of our
Yes.
construction. So just want to clarify that we're a general engineering contractor, so we don't build anything. Like we don't physically build, but we do demolish. And on our
Yes.
demolition projects, it's required, like the waste minimization, so it's required that we recycle as much as we possibly can. So
Hmm.
I love working with clients helping them to be innovative and creative on how they can utilize their materials or reuse their materials as opposed to having to transport them and dispose of them. Because there may be another client, like if it's concrete and it's not contaminated, maybe it can be used to fill in a bunker, or
Right.
there's another project it can be used on, or there's opportunities to recycle asphalt. Like there are actual recycling companies that we can sell the materials to and they recycle them. So there's a lot of opportunities, and for the most part, that's what we do. And then we have another division that we launched in 2017 where we provide construction management services. So we have engineers, project managers, schedulers, document control personnel who work on construction projects for the duration of the project. So that's really exciting. So they're still not building, but they're part of the management of developing the construction project.
Wow, that's good. We share actually the same philosophy in our company years ago. We established a recycling program because we get raw lumber, we process it. And when we make product, you have waste. And rather than just filling them up in the landfills, we started taking the cutoffs and engineering them into pieces that could be used to make our door products. So we have very little waste, and we don't have to use as much as the wood supply out there. So that's very good. I'm happy to hear that, and we're not the only ones doing it. Okay, the OWA mission is all about helping women become successful in alternative careers, such as I have mining, construction, manufacturing, along with entrepreneurship. Could you tell us a little bit how you, with CTI Environmental, how you envision its role in the environmental and safety industry in the years to come?
Oh, that's a big question.
We'll take a few minutes to think about it.
Yeah, I think, well, what's really interesting, so when I started in the environmental space, sustainability wasn't a thing, right?
Right.
So for me, it was about the hazardous materials, remediation, that type of environmental, right? Because even now, when I say environmental, I think about remediation, cleaning up hazardous materials. But then there's also the environmental, where it's the biological, right? So the monitoring when there's a project in the desert, and you making sure that whatever protected species are protected. And then there's the archaeological, right? Or the other one. And so when you say environmental, you think of what historical items, whether it be artifacts that may be discovered when you're digging. And then now it's this sustainability piece that's brand new. So from a marketing perspective, it's great for me as an environmental firm, because I put that word out there. And when a person says, well, can you do X, Y, and Z? And there's always a consultant who can do it, right?
Yes.
But I think that with our team, we are wanting to be innovative and, I want to say, groundbreaking, right? But when we look at construction related projects, and whether they're going for the LEED or the platinum or whatever, like building goals they have for themselves, we want to be able to help them to implement and meet their goals, for the buildings, on the building side. And then, as I mentioned before, on the sustainability side, from the waste reduction, or even incorporating some sustainable design. So I in the last 2 years, I became an Envision sustainability professional, so that we could assist our clients with developing those types of projects. And even in DemoChicks, when we have a workshop where we'll have an architect, landscape architect, as one of our speakers, and they talk about sustainable designs as well. So what we want to be able to do is have conversations and introduce the concepts like every opportunity that we get, whether it's on actual projects we're working on or developing the workshops for DemoChicks.
Okay. Wow, that's terrific. Another mission for RO is all about fostering collaboration and community among women. And you've been actively involved in various community organizations and initiatives. How do you see community engagement as an essential part of CTI's mission?
Well, that's one of the beautiful things about having your own business is, well, one of the beautiful things for me is I get to shape and determine what it looks like and what the values are. And collaboration has always been one of my values.
Yes.
That's matter of fact, it's one of our core values with CTI. And I also believe, being a late bloomer myself, I'm always, I'm looking at people who would say, well, like you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, if someone's saying, oh, they want to make a change or they haven't done it, so maybe I can, it's too late. It's never too late. So I'm always looking for that person who was me, right? Whether, a single parent or non-traditional person, or I'm always looking for that person so I can be that light saying, I did it, you can too. And even with DemoChicks, because we're a fairly new nonprofit, collaboration keeps us going, right? Because while I'm running CTI, I'm visible. People can see me, so that's the inspiration, right? So I guess I say all that to say that it's just who I am and it's what I represent every day,
right,
as I work. But with and even as a special, so we're SBE, right? Normally that stands for Small Business Enterprise, but I said if I keep saying that, then I'll always be small. So as a special business enterprise, it's extremely important for us to collaborate. Some of our larger projects we would not have been able to execute if we did not team with other folks. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I know you answered about CTI, then I started talking about DemoChicks, and then
no, it's okay. That was a great answer. And actually, you know what? Just to be kind to our audience, I think we have to go into what DemoChicks is. It's one of your pet projects. It's part of your leadership in the community. So why don't you talk about that?
Okay, yes. So DemoChicks is a nonprofit that I started after demolishing a federal prison in 2019. And while I was on that project, there were about 122 structures, single story, two-story, and above ground storage tanks, single and two-story buildings and above ground storage tanks. And while we were working on that project, we were paying our general laborers 40 plus $40 more an hour.
Right.
And I thought, how do more people learn about demolition as an industry or working in demolition? And then the fact that not everyone's going to get a 4-year degree, but they too can earn a decent living. And so that kind of got me thinking, what can I do? And many steps in between, it turned into a nonprofit. Where we introduce girls to non-traditional careers. And at first it was more focused on the construction trades, but as an engineer, I wasn't going to leave out STEM. So it encompasses all of that. So introducing girls to non-traditional careers such as STEM and ACE. And ACE is architecture, construction, and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do hands-on workshops for the girls to engage them, to pique their interest. I mean, sometimes they'll say, oh, that was fun, but I'm not going to do that. But I always say the seed has been planted, right? So they'll remember that workshop, they'll remember that experience, and they may or may not decide to pursue it.
And how do you find young women to become part of DemoChicks? How do they reach out to the program if they had an interest in it?
Well, initially we did a lot through social media, because we actually launched about 3-4 months before the pandemic. And so a lot of it was online, and I meet people all over the country who have heard of DemoChicks because of that. But definitely our social media, DemoChicks, that's DemoChicks. Sometimes people leave off the K. So they can find us there, or our website, DemoChicks.org. And we reach out to middle schools, colleges. In colleges, we provide more mentoring and scholarships. Organizations, girls' organizations, sororities, they typically reach out to us.
So is this nationwide initiative or just restricted to the California area?
No, it's nationwide.
That's incredible.
Especially because of the online programming, but we'd rather be in person.
Hands-on absolutely would be more, it'd be more beneficial to experience it, right? Okay, you could read about it and you can write things about it, but to actually do the work, like if you're swinging a hammer or you're cutting a piece of wood or like you said, demolishing something, those are very unique experiences that you can't really feel in a computer course or anything like that.
Well, our programming, while it was online, it was still hands-on. We had interactive Zooms. So for architecture, we would have the toothpicks and marshmallows. So the girls would buy the supplies. Initially, supplies that parents could access. So for chemical engineering, it would be fizzy lemon soda. And so we would provide them with a list. They could go shopping, or they already had it in their homes. Or and then after a while, after we build up our database, we even had members, and so we would ship them the supplies. But once we were able to start meeting in person again, we started meeting in person. But that online experience, I was really, really impressed, and I have to credit my sister for that, because she had been teaching online for 10 years prior to the pandemic. And so just to watch these young people engage online, they're sitting at their dining room tables on tablets or computers and doing the experiments. But I want to, I can go back to the CTI question just for a moment.
Sure.
I get a lot of inquiries from aspiring entrepreneurs who talk about, ask about me being in business. How did you do it? Or I want a mentor. And I don't really have the answers, because I didn't have this plan, right? I've always had the entrepreneur mindset, and I think it came from the early years of working in my uncle's store. But I didn't say, oh, I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to start a consulting company, because as a consultant, you have many bosses.
That's right.
Right. And so it just was very interesting. If anything, I thought about technical sales or something like that. So it's really something that I stumbled into. I didn't plan it. One of the consultants I worked with suggested it, and I said, oh, what a concept, And then when I finally decided to pursue it on a part-time basis, my employer at the time, although I did everything to make sure there wasn't a conflict, but my employer at the time, when they found out I had a company, decided that they weren't happy with my working and having a consulting company.
Yeah.
And so they fired me. And so at that, and it was interesting because there were other folks who worked there who had companies too. But I think I would have never left my job. I would have never left a full-time job to pursue this, because we weren't making we didn't have revenues.
And you stayed at your job for necessity, right? You needed that income, and your self-employment gig was just something part-time, and it wasn't enough for you to withstand and take care of your family, right?
Right. It was just something part-time that I didn't know if it would ever turn into full-time. It was just something. But when I was relieved of my job, I thought it was a sign. I said, oh, it's a sign. And so I then I got really serious about it. And I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity. And things did not take off right away. So I talked to entrepreneurs who have a dream or a vision, and it doesn't happen right away, to not give up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I always say that I fell in love with the freedom over security, because there was nothing secure. At the time, unemployment, and we weren't generating a lot, but it was the excitement and it was the chase, right? It was
I bet.
getting all my certifications and showing up at the networking events. And there was that hope that this will turn into something, but there's no guarantees, right? I mean, but I like people. So I like the networking aspect, and I met a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I didn't have a lot of strategy. I just showed up. I showed up and I got to know a lot of people, and at some point, it took many years to really get a sustainable contract. Um, but in the beginning, I mean, I pretty much built the company on one-offs, project here, project there. And it took several years to get the first long-term contract. But I enjoyed it, right? Because it's like I said, it was the freedom over the security. I may not have had all of the financial
Mm-hmm.
rewards in the beginning, but I was my own boss. Um, I could travel home and visit with mom and all those things. But very, 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 very rewarding. Excuse me. But I just tell people, if you're really serious about, being your own boss or being an entrepreneur, a business owner, that to not give up. I mean, but
Absolutely.
you definitely have to work, right? It's not, you
Of course.
definitely have to work and be willing to make the sacrifice.
That's right.
Maybe having a lifestyle change temporarily for future rewards.
Now, you brought up a lot of very good points. One that I just want to take a quote out of Tony Robbins, saying that things happen for you, not to you. So it was maybe a blessing in disguise for you to be relieved of your post with your employer. And that opened up so many other doors for you. And look at you now. Like, that is a great story you shared, because a lot of young individuals, they see things on social media, and they think the life of an entrepreneur, they see the success story when it happened, but they don't see the steps. And you mentioned hard work, resilience, perseverance. I'm pretty sure when you had to go out and search for work, you had to go and knock on doors. You had to present yourself, have a strategy, and you had to convince them that they had to have confidence that you were the person to do the job. And that's very, very important to share with our audience. But at the other hand, the other spectrum is it gave you mobility freedom. You said you got to visit with your mom, which is fantastic. I'm assuming you get to also have flexible hours of the day. You can work as much as you want or as little as you want, depending where you want to go. And then you set your financial goals. Well, if I want to reach this level, then I got to work this much more. If not, maybe I'm not at that situation where I might be a young mother and I have young children. I might be a single parent. So I can't commit that much time. So again, you can be more flexible. And then there's stages in your life when, yeah, you can actually work at it a bit more and achieve greater success.
Yeah, all those that's everything that I stated. And working, some people say, oh, you have to work twice as hard. And I never subscribe to that, but that's my choice, right?
Exactly. Life is about choices. You are your own impact, by the way. Nobody else can do it for you. So I do want to go back 1 second about DemoChicks, and I want to. You mentioned your sister is a school teacher. Like, how do you think the schools can encourage young girls to start thinking about alternative careers, and what changes do you think the school system should take place to foster that encouragement?
Well, one of the ideas that I have, and I really need to introduce it, is in middle school that part of the curriculum be introduction to construction. And I say construction because I'm thinking of the construction trades and not just construction.
Right.
But there's an engineering component. So I don't know if it would be introduction or introduction to non-traditional careers for girls.
Yes.
But we want to change that. How long will they be non-traditional as we do? So I don't know what it would be called. So we'll
can
say
figure that out.
Construction 101 for today. And so I would want that to be a part of every fifth grade, like middle school experience for girls. We can push it back to elementary, but that's something I'm going to propose in my community, because it's just the girls having access and seeing themselves in that role.
Correct.
And I think that's the first step. And then having a curriculum or having something where they can work through engineering, construction, those types of careers, be introduced to it. That's the first step. Yes. And then something that we want to incorporate even in our workshops that I haven't done is adding a fun math component at the end, because we can encourage girls to go into engineering, but the math could stop them, right? Because I hear too much, oh, I can't do math, I don't like math. So tricking them into liking math. Correct. So that once they say, I'm interested in engineering, so that doesn't prevent them from being successful. So I think sharing with them, like DemoChicks will have a book, right? DemoChicks teaching girls how to count. So even before middle school, when kids learn to count, right, just seeing girls in that role, I think it's really important. So one of the things we talk about in DemoChicks is see it, be it, right? Because it's one thing to talk about a career, but when you see other women doing it, it's just a natural thing.
Yeah, that's such a fantastic way of looking at it. Introducing more books, having women as those role models at an earlier age, because we need to clear the misperceptions that are out there. For example, I noticed over the years that males have now taken on female roles, quote unquote. And the female roles could be, they might be male nurses. Recently, I'm starting to see a lot of males that are becoming nail technicians in salons, and they do manicures and pedicures. So why is it that men can come into traditional women roles, and why are we getting kind of like the backlash that, oh no, you can't do it because you can't do math, or, you're not good at science? Those things we need to just wipe the blackboard and start fresh, because it's not true. Because if like you said, if you're doing it and I'm doing it, and many other the guests that I'm featuring on the show are living examples, then there's no reason why you can't do it as well.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. And it's something that's always been a part of me, because when my son was in elementary school, I remember, so my friends, we would go to his school and we would do science experiments. And we would ask, so what does a scientist look like? And they would always say, he wears a white lab coat. And here I was with me and a few of my friends from school in lab coats. We weren't engineers yet, but we were in the program. And we all had on white lab coats. Some of us had glasses, some of us did not. But I remember when my son was in the fourth grade, there was a career fair. And I wanted to do non-traditional careers. And we had a male nurse, and we had a female de-icer, and we had a African-American psychologist. So it's always been a part of who I am, even back then.
One thing that I want to bring out is you're definitely a hardworking individual, and you have a lot of talents. And I really love your approach towards philanthropy. And one thing that I do want to highlight is entrepreneurship also gives people the opportunity to give back to the community. to not only share their knowledge, but also financial backing. And one thing I want to focus is you as a philanthropist and a global workshop facilitator. Can you share some of the highlights of your work in empowering women, both in the U.S. and internationally?
Sure. and it's so interesting because it's just like who I am. Like in 2011, I had the opportunity to visit South Africa. Or was it 2000? My first trip to South Africa. Well, I had a chance to visit South Africa and, went, and it was great. And so I was so inspired by the people there, like just with apartheid ending not too many years before then, and just meeting people who were my age, who experienced with what my parents experienced with, the civil rights movement. I was blown away. Mm-hmm. And so I had a chance to go back a second time, and I wanted to make a contribution. And so I actually had a chance to do a business seminar at a church in South Africa. And then I did a vision board workshop for women. So back then, I became an international speaker, right? Without wanting to be an international speaker, but that's what it was. And it was actually my first vision board experience. And so here I am in South Africa teaching women about envisioning their future and setting goals and, talking to, doing a business seminar at a church. So that was pretty exciting. So I think a big part of it is because of my path, right? So I want to inspire people to pursue whatever their dream is, to pursue it. Like when I meet someone and they talk about what they like to do, I'm like, do it. What's stopping you? Let's do it. Because not everybody has a dream, but I think those who have a dream need to pursue it. Those who have an idea about a business idea, I'm like, let's do it. But at the same time, a person has to recognize if they're not willing to put the work in. Because I have a cousin, she bakes. She's a great baker, but she knows that she would never run her own business because she says she's lazy. She's like, I like to bake, it tastes good, but I'm not doing a business. I'm like, oh my gosh, what? There's passion there, there's talent there, and you're not going to do anything with it. So I want to be an example, just letting people know that they can do it. I forgot the question, but I think I just live my life so that others can see, like, none of what I do is for me. I know that sounds cliche, but it's really true, right? Because I'm going to be okay, but I want other people to know I've done it, and so can you. And so I really like to be behind the scenes, but I accept that I cannot stay behind the scenes because other people won't know what they can accomplish if I hide.
But you did answer the question, because what you're doing through your role is you're just empowering women just by showing them who you are and what you've become. That's basically it. And that's fantastic. Now, I want to go back to what we mentioned earlier in the podcast regarding your experience in engineering and construction, both male-dominated industries. Mm-hmm. So, say I'm a young lady and I want to get into engineering and construction. What advice would you give me?
To seek other women who are doing it, because there are enough of us out here. Because that way, you won't feel intimidated. So when I started down this path, because I was so focused, it didn't matter that there weren't many women. So when I walk into a meeting and I'm the only woman there, and they don't know that I'm like the CEO of the company, it didn't bother me because I was just so focused and determined. I mean, I look back at pictures now where I was the only woman when I was at the manufacturing plant, and it was a national firm. And so when the engineers would come together or the EHS managers would come together, and I would be the only woman. But I'm looking back and I'm seeing that now. Like at the time, it didn't even faze me.
Right.
or when the fire department would come, because we were a high risk plant and they would have to do walkthroughs 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, I was the only woman then too. But it didn't faze me because I was so focused on the goal. So I would say to women, build yourself up, whether that's from reading or your faith, whatever it takes to build yourself up so that you can show up fully who you are, like confident. And when you have those moments where you're maybe not feeling confident, it's good to have a mentor. It's good to have a tribe, people that you could talk to, because we're not always strong and confident and
Correct.
sure of ourselves. So I think it's good to take care of yourself and rest, right?
Yes.
And then you have to, I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. So I have to make sure that I'm full, right? Take breaks and build myself up as a person of faith. That's what I use. I read scriptures. Sometimes when I'm feeling like depleted, I'll read and it's like, whoa, I'm empowered, right? Because I know where the power comes from. I know where my strength comes from. So even if I don't feel it, I know it's there. So I think it's really important that they take care of themselves. And there are lots of programs for young people to get involved in, whether it's a summer program or a workshop, just to educate themselves and be prepared. Because I think the more prepared you are, the more confident you become.
That's great advice. Now, are there any like professional organizations that young people can look into joining in your area or maybe across the nation that might provide mentorship or opportunities to do something like a cooperative program in a specific area of engineering, construction, or manufacturing that you know of?
There are so many. DemoChicks for one, right?
Okay.
Well, we're still building, but we definitely provide support. You have the Society of Women Engineers, National Association of Women in Construction, National Association of Black Women in Construction.
Nice.
Business chambers, regardless of where you're located in the world, right? There are business chambers that have mentoring programs, or if they don't have them themselves, they can always point you in a direction. But women in transportation, there's so many organizations. But it's important that you connect with an organization that's actually getting the work done.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Now, one thing I do want to make it very clear to our audience that the road to entrepreneurship or even an alternative career can be rocky, and there's always going to be obstacles. Can we share some of the unique challenges in your career that you faced, and how did you go about in resolving them or overcoming them?
Well, a huge obstacle I talked about when I talked about security, freedom over security, financial. Right. Financial obstacle, right? Because in order, I can, you want to go to a meeting, it's like, wait, do I have gas in my car? Something as simple
that is a big challenge, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something just in the financial, being able to pay to go to different events. And so you could be creative. I know I have an associate who says he doesn't always pay to go to conferences, but he can go to the hotel where the conference is being held in the lobby and meet people, right? So early on, maybe you have to do those types of things. If you can't get in the conference, you can be around the conference. But financial and knowledge, like you don't know what you don't know, right? So early on, although I went to a lot of workshops, I didn't have work, so it was nothing to apply it to. So later down the line, I said, oh, that's what they were talking about. Or even, one of the things we do a lot of work, public work projects, right? With the municipalities and the federal government. There's so much red tape, right? So they say, if you want to do business with the big boys, then you have to go through the process. But some of it is just really ridiculous, right?
Yeah,
so,
sure is.
And one of the things that I was told, you need to have a good accountant and an attorney. Well, in the beginning, well, even now, I mean, it's very costly, right?
It is.
But you have to do it, because if you don't, later on, you'll find out it's still costly. So do you want to pay up front and be in compliance or have to backtrack? So those are some of the challenges I was faced with early on, just not knowing what I didn't know. And so I always advise people to find someone to tell them in 15 minutes what it took them 15 years to learn, right? So if someone were to come to me, I could tell them something that I learned over the past 15 years of being in business. I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And to be, and don't be afraid to ask for help, like, and be open to receiving. Because one of the things that I found, because I talk a lot, especially one-on-one, big group, I'm quiet. One-on-one, I talk a lot. So I had to learn when I need to be quiet and listen. Like when I'm meeting with this person who, has 600 employees, I have 10, he has 600.
Wow.
I need to listen more and talk less. I don't have to always tell my stories. I don't have to always relate. I need to listen. So that's very important.
Those are great nuggets for our audience to take away with. And lastly, like, what legacy do you hope to leave through your career and your philanthropy, both for your family and the broader community?
Well, one of the things I want to say before I answer that question, of philanthropic part, like with DemoChicks, so it was self-funded initially, and it didn't cost a lot to do workshops, but I even told the board, we're going to do the work to the level that we can do it until we can do more. So, the workshops, like every girl's going to get a t-shirt. And so it was just important for me to do the work. Who's paying for this? I am,
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And as a result of doing that, because it's important to build a story, you need a story to tell when you want to ask people for funding later. So how are we going to build a story if we wait for the funds to build a story? So that was really important to me. But what I would want, because it's interesting, because no one in my family has followed in the engineering or the type of business that I have. But I do have a nephew who's an artist, but he watches how I navigate in business. Right. I mean, he came to my office, he sees how I interact with my employees, and that's value for him to see an entrepreneur being successful and so on and so forth, and being able to hire him to do some work on the social media side. So that's I think great. I want to be an example to my family, my nieces, nephews, great nieces, all those folks, to pursue their passions and dreams. And I also for them to be more generous, because I'm in a space where, I go to events, I make donations. Not everybody does that. Not everybody lives in that space.
Correct.
So I want people to be more generous. I mean, they don't have to give as much or do as much, but do something. Like, find that one thing that you're passionate about and support that. I mean, I think that's really important, that everyone should find something that they can give to.
Yeah, and giving back doesn't always correlate with writing a check. You can also provide a little bit of your time, just going to, say, seniors resident and visiting with some seniors that have been forgotten, or volunteering at the local public school to help children who are behind in their reading, and help them get up to speed and onto par with their other kids. There's so many things you can do. You're absolutely right. If you could do one small thing, it'd make the world a better place, for sure. That's
absolutely, I agree.
Good takes on that. Thank you so much, Robin, for taking the time to be with us today. For our listeners who want to connect, learn more about you, maybe reach out about DemoChicks, your work, any speaking events, where can they go and find you?
Very interesting. I just launched a robinthorne.com, and that's Robin with an I and Thorne with an E. So robinthorne.com, and it has information about both CTI and DemoChicks. So if they were to go there, they can find out anything they want to know about Robin Thorne.
Okay, that's fantastic. We'll put that in the show notes so that our audience can look you up. Only Women Entrepreneurs is committed to empowering women as they navigate the entrepreneurial world and explore alternative career paths. To discover more about our mission and offerings, please visit our website at onlywomenentrepreneurs.com. Here you'll find a wealth of resources designed especially for women seeking success in male-dominated industries of manufacturing, mining, construction, or entrepreneurship. Explore our range of personal development and business courses tailored to assist you on your journey. Whether you're launching a new business or aiming to elevate your life, I'm here to serve you as a trusted guide. Book a free career consultation today. Don't forget to connect with us on social at Only Women Entrepreneurs. Join our vibrant and ever-expanding community of resilient women who are redefining themselves and striving for greatness. Wherever you find yourself in life, O is here to provide guidance every step of the way. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out when we interview our next guest. Thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to welcoming you on my next episode. Thanks again, Robin.
Thank you.